Hey, we are with Jodi Krangle. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Chris?
Fantastic. So, Jodi, you are an actual voice artist or
I
voice
am.
actor. You call it voice artist or voice actor? Are they the same thing?
Either will do, yeah. Mostly the same thing. Voice
H-
actor, voice talent, voiceover. Yeah, it's all the same thing.
How would one even know to get into that?
Tricky question. It really depends on what kind of things you want to get into. So I am mostly in the marketing, branding, advertising end of things. So I do mostly commercial and corporate narration and maybe some in-show narration for the TV and that kind of thing. But if you want to get into animation, video games, that's a completely different way to get into things. Audiobooks, again, are a completely different genre to get into. Yeah, there's a lot. E-learning, anything long form. I mean, the e-learning stuff and the corporate narration can be a little easier to get into than, say, the audiobooks and the animation and video games and even the commercials.
Really?
Yeah, and promo because there's so much work for people in the e-learning genre and corporate narration. There's a lot out there. And that's not to say that you don't need to be good, because you do need to be good. But it's maybe there's still acting involved. It's all acting. It's all about who you're speaking to and how you're communicating with them and the premise of why you're communicating with them. So, who are you speaking to, right? Are you speaking to your friend? Are you speaking to your mom? Are you speaking to a 6-year-old kid? Like there's completely different perspectives on all of that. But e-learning and corporate narration tend to be a lot more forgiving as far as acting is concerned.
Well,
So,
with a lot of the e-learning stuff and a lot of that kind of stuff, I would think that some of them are probably leaning more towards AI voices for that stuff.
well, the reason that I don't think that's the case for e-learning, I think people try it out for e-learning and then they come back to a human voice because we can tell. Consciously, we can't tell sometimes, but subconsciously, we know we're not listening to another human and there's no connection. And if you're trying to teach people, you want them to pay attention and you want them to actually learn
Right.
something. They're not going to if they think it's an AI voice or if they perceive that it's an AI voice. Even if they don't perceive it, if there's no actual emotion involved, it can be off-putting. So yeah, there's a conception out there that e-learning is okay for AI. I say no. I don't think so.
Well, coming from the voice actor, I would think that,
Well,
yeah.
I know, but there are uses for it. Like for instance, like a weather channel that needs someone to say the weather, but it changes on a minute by minute basis, right? Like
Right. I think they have a weather like AI person that used to say it on the radio. There's a radio channel, a weather
yeah,
channel,
yeah, yeah.
and it would have that weird tone voice. I think that was years ago. I don't.
It's probably getting better all the time.
Yeah,
I'm
I would
not I'm
think.
not saying that, and I'm not saying AI is inherently bad. I do think it has its uses. I would really like to have my own personal AI voice so that I can correct things that are, I happen to be away or I'm sick or, someone needs to update a date in a corporate narration I did, or like, things that need to change even if I'm not there or I can't do it and sound exactly the same, or, for some whatever reason that is. Or if someone just didn't want a session fee and they want to just have the text read in my voice, I mean, it costs a little less, and sure, I'm fine with that if they want to do it, but I want control.
Of course, don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm not saying AI is inherently bad. I'm just saying it has its uses, and some of those uses really shouldn't be for education.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I mean, imagine a robot trying to teach a class. I don't know if they could do that.
I mean, we're getting more used to it all the time, so I don't think it's completely off the chart, but I don't know. I don't think that it's a good idea, at least right now.
Right, right. Well, when it came to making the decision to jump into voice acting, were you trying to like mimic a voice that you heard, like say on the radio or a cartoon character or anything like that? Did you kind of like say, I can make a really good X impression of whatever character it is, so I can try that? Is that what happened?
No, actually. I think that the problem with someone imitating a character, if they're wanting to get into voice acting, yes, it's good to be able to mimic a voice and good for you if you can manage it, but don't expect that that is going to give you a career because they already have that person doing that voice.
That
They
is
don't
correct.
need you to do it. Exactly.
Right.
So what you need to do is you need to maybe make an amalgam of a bunch of voices, a couple of voices that you've heard that are popular, and just make your own thing. Right? So if you really want to get into animation, a lot of the people that are in that genre, what they're doing is they're taking their impressions of a couple of different people, maybe in their lives, an uncle, that they really think is hilarious, or a cousin who is just completely outlandish and they want to sound like them mixed together, or
Right.
or a famous politician or something that they
Those
really
are
want to.
popular. Everyone's doing the trumpet.
Yeah, but if you take that thought and you take one impression and you meld it into another, it gives something completely different that is yours instead of an imitation of something that already exists. So, for voice match, here's the thing about AI. Voice match is going to go away because AI will do it.
Right. I think it does it right now. I mean, you could probably...
it totally does it right now. The thing right now about it is consent. So you need to make sure that the person who created that voice is okay with it being emulated. And
yeah, I guess even those commercials on the radio years and years ago, and they have supposedly some celebrity talking about some product, but at the very, very end, they'll say celebrity voices impersonated. They have to say that at the very end of everything. So if you have a podcast and you want to play have fun with it, maybe your intro is done by Arnold Schwarzenegger or the voice impersonator. Do you have to say that in the podcast somewhere?
I think you should. You could conceivably get sued if you don't.
Right. Even if you don't say, hey, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't say that, but you have his voice. You could still,
You could still get sued. Oh, yeah.
Because it's recognizably his voice. You can't say it's somebody else's voice.
Yeah, it's just something to be careful about. And also the AI, like I said, can do that for you. You don't need a human being to do that anymore. So, of all the genres that are probably going away, that's going to be one of them, voice matching.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So what do you think about all of those Fiverr voice artists, actors out there? Should we use them? Should we not use them? Are they hit and miss? What do you think? I don't know.
I mean, you can use them. There's nothing wrong with that. Just the same way that you can use AI. Will it be the right fit for your product is what you need to think about.
There's a whole bunch of them on there, yeah.
Well, exactly. But that's why I talk about audio branding. So if you cheap out on your audio, what does that say about your product or service?
Correct. That is right. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, just sampling, and I found them on social media. They commented something on my post, and I decided to check out their show. And I was listening to it. The intro sounded okay. It kind of went okay. So the volume sounded okay. Had some music, and they're talking about we did this and this and this. Great. And then this pause, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, and it's going to drop. The audio is going to go from here down to a 3. And sure enough, it sure did. And I'm like, what? And I think a lot of podcasters do that, especially the Zoom recording shows where they'll have somebody, maybe an audio artist or something that did an intro, and then they'll just throw on their Zoom show right after it, and the audio just drops.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for podcasters to help fix that kind of stuff?
It's called leveling.
No way, really?
Yeah, totally. Just level it. Yeah. So it just all needs to be the same volume level. It's a app, something you can do through Adobe Audition or Twisted Wave or whatever it is you're using.
Well, I would say the simple way, if you got two audio tracks, you always can adjust the volume level or at least the gain on each one to kind
you
of
can totally do that.
Balance. That's an easy way to do it.
I just don't think people think about it. But
they
what
don't,
likely is happening is the intro is done by a professional.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is not.
Right. Well, they record it every week or however they do it and stuff, and they just throw it on there and they call it a day and stuff like that. But I always kind of wonder, I think as long as it's listenable, it's fine, I think. But I think, just for me, that audio seems to distract you from the content.
It definitely does.
I think some people will argue and say, no, the content is the only thing that matters. But if it's coming through like a tin can,
Yeah. No,
you know,
I'm sorry. They're wrong.
yeah,
They are just wrong. I'm sorry. Bad audio hurts my ears. And I mean, I'm really picky. So for me, yeah, it totally is a game changer. And I cannot listen to something for more than a couple of seconds if it's really awful. But even for your average everyday listener, they might get by through 5 minutes of it or something. But if you have to ride your volume control on your car radio when you're listening to a podcast, or if you're at home and you got to ride your gain on the computer, it's a pain in the ass, first of all.
right.
And second of all, it just hurts. It takes away from the professional information that's being shared. So if you are producing something that you want people to listen to on a regular basis, pay attention to your sound.
I would say sound matters. I mean, I don't want to be
it
heard.
Totally does. Yeah.
I think people do a lot of the video stuff. Do you think sound matters as much with video as with audio because you don't have the video distraction, or the same, or what?
I think it matters just as much, if not more, actually. I know people who will watch bad video if the audio is good, but not the other way around.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
And that's actually, I think there was actually a study that YouTube did.
Really? It's
yeah,
fascinating.
Don't quote me exactly because I don't know what the numbers really are, but I think that there was a study done at one point that said, yeah, the video content is important, but if your audio is bad, people are just not going to listen. They're not going to watch through the whole thing because it's just painful.
I know a lot of people will use their cell phones as their one-stop shop for everything. You can record video and audio into it and put it on YouTube immediately. And I think some of the cameras and some of the microphones in these phones, like I have the new iPhone and all that, I think they're getting fairly good. Mm-hmm. But I still don't think you could probably get away with doing an entire podcast solely on the phone. I mean, there are processing tools you can use today that kind of enhance that stuff. Have you played with any of those enhancement tools?
Honestly, no.
Okay, well, you don't have to.
I'm not someone who likes doing a whole lot of stuff on my phone. I think it's just
Oh, really?
Because I grew up in an era where we didn't have these growing up. When I was a kid, I didn't have internet.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
I have my phone with me everywhere, just like everyone in the entire universe right now. But I don't rely on it for a lot of the things that a lot of people do, just because I'll play games on it. I don't like doing editing with it.
Yeah, I can't imagine editing anything. When I'm on Instagram and you do the Instagram Reels, they have like the editor built into it.
Yeah.
Even that's kind of like, but we're talking maybe a 10-second clip here. We're not talking, an hour podcast or whatever. I can't imagine doing that.
I'm not saying people shouldn't use their phone for stuff like TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, go for it. But a whole podcast? Depends on how long your podcast is.
Right. Well, I know that I've got clients and I've had interviews before in the past where they come in on not the greatest gear, and you have to kind of like make do and try to. My goal is always try to make sure it sounded as good as I could possibly make their stuff.
Yeah.
But you're at the mercy of their stuff. So if you were going to interview somebody and they came on with either just earbuds or maybe just a microphone built into the laptop, what would you do to help enhance that or tell them to fix that?
Well, they need a separate microphone, first of all. Does not have to be an expensive one. I'll tell you, this one right here is a USB condenser mic that costs about $100. It's really not all that expensive. It's called a HyperX. And it sounds fantastic. And the reason it sounds fantastic is because I'm close enough to it. So that's what I would say. You don't need to have to spend a lot of money on a microphone. You need a separate microphone, but it doesn't have to cost a lot. And as long as you're close enough, you won't hear the room noise around you. I mean, you'll hear noise if something bumps or someone starts mowing the lawn next door. But,
yeah,
if as far as the room sound is concerned, you won't hear the wide open space. of the room that you happen to be in, which can be very distracting because it's echoey. It's not
Yeah,
a
but
great
doesn't
sound.
the condenser microphone pick more of that room noise up versus dynamic?
It does. It depends on the way that it's situated. So this is a cardioid pattern.
Okay.
And when the pattern is not omni, because omni is all around you, you want it to be very specific towards where your mouth is. So cardioid does that. It's kind of like almost like a figure eight. It's kind of a...
Right.
Yeah.
Like right in front of the microphone is the best spot for it to pick up, not like around it and behind it and things like that.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm a little to the side, right? So
Okay.
because I don't have a pop filter, that actually allows me to not pop all the time when I,
okay, yeah.
yeah. So just a little bit off to the side, just a little, and you can save yourself from a lot of plosives, which can be very troublesome in editing.
So when you are doing the voiceover stuff, you're not using that mic, you're using a different mic, right?
When I do my podcast, I'm on this mic. When I do my voiceover work, I'm in the booth with a 416, a Sennheiser 416, which is a $1,200 mic. So that's a little different.
Now,
Yeah.
can you tell the difference, really, audio-wise? Like if you...
Yes,
Okay.
you can definitely tell the
I just want to know
difference.
because, some people say, oh, I can't tell the difference or whatever. I mean, like...
You may not be able to tell between, say, a $300 mic and an $800 mic.
Really?
But you can definitely tell the difference between, like, this and a $1,200 mic. Yeah.
But are you processing the same way, like running through the same stuff, same gear?
I don't run it through anything. Actually, this is running through nothing. This is straight from my computer to whatever signal we have. And in my booth, I'm using what's called a Mic Hero DSP, which is an audio interface that connects to my computer from my XLR mic. So the XLR, like the plug-in that you have on your mic right there, is an XLR, right?
Right, yeah.
So you need to plug it into something to get the analog into digital, and
Correct.
that's the audio interface. So the audio interface connects my computer to my mic, and everything works very smoothly with Adobe Audition, which is what I usually use for my voiceovers.
Nice. So you record directly into Adobe Audition?
Yep.
And then now, do you send that raw file over to the client or do you have to edit it first?
I do edit it a little. It depends on the client. It depends on what they want. So a lot of my clients are production houses. So they want basically as raw as possible so that they can do whatever production they want, right? But I have some end clients that are just going to use what I send them in whatever video or thing that they're putting together, which means I might process it a little. I might make sure that the S's are a little less pronounced, like a de-esser, just a little bit, because I can get a little sibilant-y sometimes.
I think it's most women, I think, kind of do that. I've noticed.
It's more of a teeth thing than it is
okay.
a woman thing, to be honest.
That was a pitch, like a higher pitch voice sound, maybe.
Yeah, so that would be more trebly.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, sibilance is mostly a teeth thing.
Interesting.
Between your teeth and tongue. If you pronounce your S's in a very specific, pronounced way.
What a trip.
And it whistles through your teeth. That's what happens.
Oh, what a trip.
Yeah.
What a trip. So, on that note, what's the craziest, I don't know if you can say this, what's the craziest script you ever got to say for a audio thing?
Oh, craziest.
Like something you're like, I'm not saying that. I don't care what they pay me. Kind of a thing.
You know what? There's actually never anything I have said that if I see something like that someone's offering me a job for, I just say no. I just don't
really?
do it.
Right.
Yeah. If I
right.
really have a problem with it, I'm not doing it.
Right. Now, if it was so bad, and would your name, you're like, okay, well, I'll get paid to do this. I'll give you the thing, but you take my name off of it because I don't want that statement being.
Honestly, I've never done anything like that because I just wouldn't.
You wouldn't even get there. It wouldn't
even get there. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I mean, I've done medical narrations for colon cancer, and some of the stuff that you are reading is not all that pleasant and deals with some unpleasant topics of our bodily functions.
Right. Now, how do you figure out the crazy medical words? Because some of those words are I can't read them, like a prescription bottle. Do you have a tool to help you break it apart and figure out how to say it?
Well, there is something on YouTube, actually. It's called You English. So Youglish is kind of the if you search for it. So it's a resource on the web that takes all of the YouTube videos and searches through them for the word that you put in. And you can look for how doctors have said it in videos.
Okay.
That really helps.
Because I've used the on the Mac, they got like a little button that says "Speak for you" or whatever, or even ask Siri to do it or something like that.
Yeah, but it may or may not get it right. So you want to go to like either Youglish or to Merriam-Webster, because Merriam-Webster has a great resource, and a lot of those are you can click on them and have them repeat the word for you. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can see why it comes in trouble for names, especially names, and probably medical stuff too. I mean, some of
Drug
these names
can be very hard. Yeah. But ultimately it comes down to what the client wants. So if the client wants me to pronounce something in a certain way, when I'm on a session with them, I just ask.
So you have like a meet and greet with them, and you kind of like go over different things, different words, and
well, sometimes in medical narration, for the most part, they usually want to direct me live. So what that means is when I'm in the booth, we connect on Zoom or Skype, or maybe we even connect on Source Connect, which is a way for them to record on their end what I'm doing here. So it's like a software that goes and software to software connection, and then they record what I'm speaking on their end.
Okay,
and
yeah,
so
makes
remote
sense.
recording,
Okay.
yeah, kind of like Riverside in a way, but it's direct into the Pro Tools or whatever it is that they're using.
On their end, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just makes it a lot easier for them. And when I'm in that session with them live, they might ask me to pronounce words in a certain way,
or do a retake. We'll say that one.
Or do a retake, exactly. Yeah. Tone needs to change or whatever, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense at all. So before you go in there and start to record, what are some good tips to give anybody who's using a microphone or a voice for anything, like to kind of warm their voice up? Like how do you get it like tuned just right?
Well, the first thing I would say is hydrate. Definitely drink a lot of water. And you need to have had water 20 minutes before whatever you're doing, because it takes a little while for your body to absorb the moisture. So you can't just drink right before you're going to start and expect it to work.
While you're doing it.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it helps, because eventually you're going to get a little sticky because your inside of your mouth kind of sticks to your teeth a little. Like that's what ends up happening. And it depends on how much smiling you're doing as well, because the more smiles you do, the more crackling you might hear, right? So
Really?
Yeah. So it depends on what it is that you're doing. But also in the moment, if you're having a problem with clicks and mouth noise and stuff like that, green apples are an amazing fix.
Not red ones,
Nope,
just
green
one.
apples, because they're a little tart, and so there's something in that juice that clears away the crackles.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What a trip. What a thought.
Yeah.
I always heard like the warm water or tea or something like that.
Well, it shouldn't be cold, because if it's freezing cold, you're freezing your windpipe, right? Like you're just freezing your vocal cords. Like it's just not going to help.
But did you do those like vocal training where they say me, 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 or things like, do you do things like that to kind of warm it up? Or
I don't do that. I'm a singer, so I might sing a little in the morning before I get ready to do something, but I'm probably not the best person to ask about warm-ups because I don't do them all that often.
And I think a lot of indie podcasters don't even think about this stuff. Like they just jump on probably with a beer in hand and start, going and start talking and that kind of stuff.
One of the worst things you can do is have coffee just before.
I just drank coffee before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. Well, it depends. If it's black, maybe you're okay.
Oh, Kramer all day. Come on.
If you have like sugar and a sweetener and cream or some kind of like, milk or whatever in it, it's not going to help you much.
Yeah, what I've noticed is that I'll like have my throat get stuck a little bit. And I'll have to clear it, or I'll have to like stop the recording.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps when you do a solo episode. When you're doing like something like this or anything else.
It's harder to stop and start.
Yeah. It's like, hey, hold that thought. I'll be right back, and go for it. Yeah. But I know with podcasting, now, do you do mostly interviews or solo shows or both?
I kind of do both, although I have been doing way more interviews lately than I have solo episodes. My solo episodes are about 5 to 8 minutes long, so they're pretty
Okay.
short. And I usually will just like do an essay and read it, like speak it. It's actually more performance for me because as a voice actor, I'm used to working from a script. So for me, that's
Okay.
easier than trying to do stuff off the cuff because I'm better at planned spontaneity.
Right. Well, I think a lot of us are. I think I'm getting better at
Yeah.
myself. I do notice that when you try to read a script, and if you read it how it's written, sometimes it doesn't flow as quite right as you might think it does.
Yeah.
How would you suggest someone fixing that so they don't trip over words when they're trying to read a script?
Well, it depends. Are you the one who wrote it and you
Well, let's just
don't...
say, I'd say I wrote it, but some people do write things in the way they talk. I know I
Yeah.
might do that a lot too. They'll just like talking and typing at the same time and talk it out. But
Yeah.
when they read it back, they kind of trip over things maybe and things like that. But
I think it depends on... Okay, well, in my profession, when I'm doing a voice for someone else, I need to be very conscious of what they've written because this sometimes has gone through legal 3 times and I can't change a word.
right,
So,
yeah,
like, I've done some stuff for Apple Card, for instance, and you might hear that on Spotify. And they are very, very conscious of saying not one word can be changed here because it's
Oh,
already
really?
gone through. Yeah, it's already gone through legal. I don't know how many times, and I cannot change an and or a you or anything. I can change nothing. So
But what about the tone for each word though? Because
Yeah.
you can say something to the script, but it could sound like something totally different.
Well, yeah. I mean, they have a tone that they want me to use that I've used in the past. And so I'm matching what I've already done, which is, kind of how all of this works, really.
Right,
But
right.
it depends on what kind of a level of casualness or professionalism they want, right? So who are you? Who is the podcaster that's doing whatever they're speaking? Are they really casual and they just want to, say contractions all over the place and use a bunch of slang and whatever and even swear? I mean, people do that on their podcasts. It's their podcast.
Right.
And, they can do whatever they want. Are they a business and they want to be a little more professional and it's like casual, but it's business casual? There's a difference between business casual and casual casual. So,
Right.
yeah, it just depends on how someone that I spoke to recently put it this way. They said, what kind of shoes do they wear?
What does that matter?
Well, if they wear loafers, like shiny loafers, then they're like pretty business oriented, right?
Oh, yeah.
If they wear running shoes all the time, well, maybe they're a little more casual.
Well, I wear flip flops all the time, so probably.
Okay, well, then you're pretty casual, right?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it kind of, that gives you the personality maybe a little bit. So lean into your personality. If you're putting together a script that you're going to read, maybe if you're casual, you're using contractions and you're writing like you're speaking. So there might be pauses in there. There might be thoughts and words that you use all the time, like I
Right.
say, a lot.
Oh, really?
I know this about myself. Yes. So
Well, do you edit those out on the podcast? You leave them in?
I don't edit them out because it's me. So
Yeah, it makes sense.
on a podcast, I'm not going to worry too much about it. And on a podcast, people want your personality. They don't just want some completely generic person that they can never get to know. So,
Right, I totally agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think that over editing your podcast can be something people do, especially in the beginning. I know I did the same thing. Not on this show, but on the other show we did. I was up all night, just every little gap, every little thing, every little just chip, all the way through on a 30-minute episode. It's been forever doing it.
Yeah.
Before I learned about tools like Descript and other ones and things like that.
Careful with Descript. It
Yeah, I was
works
just
really
gonna say-
well in audio, but in video, not
jump
so
cuts.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can tell, and it's very distracting.
Well, I thought it was a cool thing that all the YouTubers do it, all the jump cuts and stuff, like the quick. I thought that was a cool thing to do.
Well, those are things like Opus clips that are taking segments of of your podcast and putting them out for specific reasons to attract attention. And they'll take different pieces from different parts of your podcast and,
Oh, wow.
and smush them all together, right? Like,
Even if it's like the beginning and the end, just to put them together and
it
make it
wouldn't
look.
be the beginning and the end. It would probably be somewhere sort of sequential, but not exactly sequential. So that's where you're seeing all the jump cuts, because it's taking a 5-minute segment and making it 30 seconds. Let's
Right,
say.
and I think even on Instagram or TikTok, I've seen ones like that. It does
Well,
get
because
very
that's
jarring.
where they promote it, right? Opus
Right.
Clips is then promoted to all of social media. However,
Oh,
you're
wow.
yeah. So, and that's just one of them. Opus Clips is one
Right.
of the tools that people use using AI to figure out what the best clips would be for SEO purposes or attracting attention. And it's a great tool, don't get me wrong. It gives us an idea of where the segment is that might get the most attention. But at the same time, instead of actually using the Opus clips, that actual segment, we'll start from maybe where Opus Clips starts and then make a sequence of our own. And we don't use Opus Clips for the actual clip. We just use it for figuring out where to start it from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the ever fun audiograms to promote your podcast? Same concept, but just the audio wavy thing.
They don't work anymore. I hate to say
did they
it.
ever? Did they ever work?
They did for a little while when video wasn't as prevalent as it is now. But I think, unfortunately, video gets more attention than
Especially
any of
on
those
a
audio files.
Especially on a social media platform. I mean,
Yeah.
every social media platform in existence that I know of, you can put video clips on. You know.
Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the problem also is that when you're looking at those video clips, they're usually silent. They start off silent.
Well, I keep my phone on silent, and unless who knows what, but yeah, it's on silent most of the time.
I mean,
And
you have
so,
to press the little speaker thing to actually
Yeah.
hear the audio. So
Well, that's why they use the captions and stuff. All the funny, cool captions are a big
yes.
deal.
Yeah.
Because because at that point you're kind of not just the audio. You want them to see what they're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's something interesting. They'll watch and push play and things like that. But
Yeah.
I've become kind of numb to a lot of those now. To a
It
lot
is
of
a lot of noise. And I mean, like, visual noise just as much as audio noise.
Right, you scroll
there's
through,
a
it's
lot
anything.
going on out there. Yeah.
and so I think sometimes they do have little like almost like YouTube thumbnails. They have the ones for the reels and for the TikToks and for those kind of things, and they're getting a lot of crazy graphics in them. I think that's what you have to do to stand out in all that noise, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or Riverside or Instagram or wherever.
That's what Opus Clips does, I guess, or the AI tools that are like it. That's kind of what they excel at. And you can just feed it into the algorithm and have it spit out something that will get attention. But to be honest, at this point, I've seen so many of those similar clips that I tune it out.
That's me too. I mean, I'm scrolling through social media, and it's a talking head or two talking heads or a talking head thing, and it's got the captions on it. I'm like, do I really care what they're talking about? Not really.
Well, it's also like, if you're looking at posts and show notes and things that have a ton of emoticons in them, like
Emoticons? Like
or emojis and
Oh,
whatever.
okay,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like all of like tons of those, then I automatically think it's AI. I don't even bother reading it.
You're right. I noticed I did an episode on that. I think if you see any kind of text that's written on any social media platform and it's filled with emojis everywhere,
Yeah.
AI all day. Because I mean, honestly, I've done it too. I do it too. I'm like, but I own it. I'll admit to it. Yeah, I use ChatGPT. It's my assistant. I know. It works great. I love it.
Copy and paste, though, not a great idea. I mean, honestly, I'm lucky enough that I have a good friend who is a really great writer, and he will take the AI generated stuff and make it into show notes that were actually written by a human being.
How does that work? So he just like takes it and writes his own words based on those words?
What he does is he uses it for sections. He uses it to summarize some things that give him the summary to work from. So it gives him the basis of what the show notes will be about and what maybe the end results would be, like the conclusions, like this is what we learned in this episode kind of deal. And it will give really good SEO titles and things like that. But as far as generating the actual show notes themselves, that is actually written by a human being.
Well, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. I'm not very good at writing. I could type and all that stuff just fine, just the writing stuff.
If I did not know this friend of mine, I probably wouldn't have them either because it's a pain in the ass.
Well, not just that. It's just like it's like trying to figure stuff out. Like
Yeah.
once I discovered how to use AI and ChatGPT and other services like it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to save me so much time. And it's going to come up with something.
But then it's the same thing as the Opus clips that you're passing by
Right.
and not paying attention to because it's just a bunch of noise. The show notes become completely useless. They
But
just become a bunch of noise.
how many people actually read show notes, honestly?
I don't know at this point. I suspect it's a pretty low number, and most people are using them for SEO. But here's the problem. SEO is not the same way that it was either, because we have ChatGPT and we have people searching ChatGPT instead of Google. So SEO and search engines are changing too. All of this is completely in flux. So where will we end up? I don't know. I'm hoping we'll end up with more humans than AI.
Well, I think now it's like you to stand out. You got to be the one as a human. Everything end to end human.
As
AI
much as I
untouched.
possibly can. I'm
Yeah.
not saying AI is bad inherently or that we shouldn't use it at all. I'm just saying it's great at sparking imagination, maybe like stopping you from looking at the white page, but it's not great for finishing. It's not how the creativity should be made. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I hear you. I
Yeah.
hear you. I mean, I use it, and there's a lot of times where I had to, most of the time I have to like restructure it, and I have to like say, no, fix this, take this out, change it with this, add that. No, I don't mean this, I mean that, and I get to play with it quite a bit and get things tuned just right.
Yeah.
And I know some people swear that like, oh, all the time you spent doing that, you could have written it yourself.
If
But-
you wanted to. I mean, I get
Right.
why people don't. I do. I understand why people don't. I'm just saying you're either going to be a good writer or you're going to be a good prompt engineer.
I think maybe I'm working on the prompt engineer myself. I think I'm working
That's
pretty,
fine. That's a
pretty good
useful
on that.
skill to have.
In
But
fact,
be
actually-
aware that you may still, once you get that output, have to modify it a little.
Of course, you're always playing with it. And that's the beauty of
Yeah.
these things is that you can, at least on ChatGPT, you can keep plugging in different commands until you find something that looks just right. Or you can say, that's horrible, let's start over, let's do it all over. I've done that too.
And people spend hours on this. And I mean, it's the HTML code of, when the internet was new. I mean, everything old is new again.
right. And I think a lot of so many like I'm on AppSumo a lot, and so many different apps pop down the email, and I swear they're all like ChatGPT infused
Oh, yeah.
or based. It's something
I've seen AppSumo. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff there. Yeah.
that's all, or any new thing that pops up, it's like somehow got ChatGPT. I'm not a coder, I don't know how stuff works, but somehow
Yeah.
they got it. They're either using their software or they're using something. It's all connected somehow. It seems like, and that's why I was like, well, I'll just use ChatGPT if I'm going to use, because I can use ChatGPT quite a few ways, and I actually started using the custom GPTs they have in there.
Okay, yeah.
Where it's like you can use to write. I just did one the other day, 2 nights ago, on the election, on the outcome. It's like a kind of simulator kind of thing of the election.
Yeah.
And you can prompt it that kind of stuff and find out, what the odds are and different things like that. So there's lots of different things you can use it for.
The issue there is where is its sources? And
Yeah, well, it
so
does-
that's
it does
where
cite
I'm
it, though.
worried about, depending on it, right?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's just like Googling anything. Remember Google back in the day when you first got into Google? You're just like, how do I make a treehouse or whatever,
Yeah. Now you ask YouTube.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, I think what Google does, it just shows you YouTube stuff because it's all the same thing. It's the same company. It's like, here, check out these other things and all of that. YouTube's great. I love YouTube, but I think I've seen personally that I think an audio podcast for long form content does better, I think, than a YouTube video long form does.
They are very different audiences.
Okay.
So the people who are on YouTube are there for the video. The people who are on, Spotify or Apple Podcasts are there for the audio specifically. And they're very different audiences. The reason that I am on YouTube, the reason that I do video is for discovery.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so it's great to have a video in order to get people to pay attention, to want to hear more, or, maybe subscribe to your YouTube channel. You never know. But will those people see, it's still up in the air, right? Will those people go and search out the audio only version? I don't know.
Yeah, that's one thing someone said that, okay, YouTube algorithm all day. There's an algorithm in there that everyone's trying to cheat. You get the cheat code for and trying to figure out how to boost their stuff.
There are no cheat codes. There's content.
Working on it.
There's content that is popular. That's what the cheat code is. And
Right,
you got to
right.
figure out what's popular. Yeah.
Well, there's YouTube videos that tell you how to figure this stuff out and all the different things. But the problem is with an audio podcast like Apple, Spotify, wherever,
Yep.
there is no algorithm. There's no algorithm. You are subscribed to the channel
Yeah.
on whatever app you have, and and then it downloads to your phone. You listen as you go. But how can a podcaster leverage or market their show with knowing that there's no algorithm for the podcast?
There are a few ways out there. If you're willing to spend a few bucks, there's Buzzsprout's way of promoting it on other podcasts. It's about, I think, a minimum of $250, and it'll last however long you get of impressions. And you would be actually advertising on a bunch of podcasts in their network that have certain criteria. So, you decide what that criteria is, and then those podcasts accept or don't accept your ad, depending on whether they want it or not. And you are promoted on their network in those podcasts. So I would say other podcasts are the best way to promote your podcast. So being on other podcasts is a great way to promote your podcast.
Yeah. Ta-da! Here you are.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
But what about the promo swaps? That used to be a big thing maybe a few years ago. I heard everyone's like, yeah, you got any promos we can swap? I'll play your promo at my show and your promo at my show. And it's kind of the same thing-ish.
I think it can work if your shows are similar.
Okay.
The problem is that I think a lot of people need to be a little more picky about the promos that they put on their podcast, because if it's so different, if it's completely different, if it's something that has absolutely nothing to do with what your podcast is about, then those people aren't going to be interested anyway, and it's a waste of your time and the person you did the promo swap with, right?
I've had some horrible promo swaps. Oh my goodness, like you're talking mid 2020 when everybody and their mother had a podcast, right? And I mean, some of them were so low quality, horrible production, and and there's like 15 minutes of just random music, and then it comes on. Hey, this is Joe with the Joe Show. Find me whenever podcast be found. What? And we were nice. We put it on there. We put it on our show as a promo swap, whatever. But
30 seconds. This should be an ad. 30 seconds.
Right. Things like that.
Maybe a minute. I don't think you can even get past a minute and have people pay attention. It's just not going to happen. But also, like I said, it's just not useful to them if what their topic is or what they're talking about has nothing to do with your topic, because then the people who are on your podcast just aren't going to be interested.
Right. And what do you think about the well-polished like teaser that they promote, but it's a lot of production, a lot of fluff, but not a lot of substance. You know what I'm saying? Where it's maybe some sound effects and music, and maybe they come in and say, Joe Show, follow us at joeshow.com or whatever. But it's a lot of like just production pizzazz, but there's no actual like content. You know what I'm saying?
If they don't explain what the show is about and why someone on your show might be interested in listening to it, then it's not worth promoting.
Right.
I mean,
especially spend money on it too.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, it whether it has great production or not, you don't need to like. Okay, I am not a production guru. Okay, I do not. I mean, I work in audio. I do that, but I only know enough to be dangerous.
Okay.
Like when it comes right down to it, really, I hire other people to do that for me. Or I give it to a client who already knows how to do that, and that's what they want. They just want the raw audio from me, minimal editing, and I can edit a little bit. I know enough, like I said, to get them what they need. But production, that is not my thing. I have managed to put together a 30-second spot that sounds pretty damn good and has the information that people need. And it's basically just the music and the voiceover and mixing them together so that the levels are right. Like, that's it. There's not much
Right.
more to it.
Right, and hit all the key points. So if you're going to do a
Yeah.
promo, if you're going to do a promo spot for somebody as a podcaster, what are maybe the 3 to 4 things you absolutely have to hit within that promo spot?
I would say that you definitely need to let the listener know what's in it for them.
Okay.
You know, why are they wanting to listen? You need to let them know the topic. You may want to have the person doing the promo being the host, because then they'll actually know what they're going to get. And you may actually want to have the music that they use in the podcast on that promo.
Interesting.
So that they're kind of getting a sample of what that podcast would sound like by the promo.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense a lot. Yeah. Yeah, but I haven't done a promo swap in forever, and I think the better way is to be on shows like this is probably the better way to do it than a promo swap. But what are your thoughts on actually, well, I've never done this, but the actual like show swap where you you do feed swap. What do they call it? Feed swap, show swap,
Yeah,
whatever it's called?
I don't like it because it's kind of a bait and switch. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
Your audience is waiting for you. And what I have done, and I did this with a woman named Elaine Appleton Grant, who has a lovely, fantastic podcast about being a better host. And I believe it's called Sound Awareness. I'd have to look it up. My goodness. And I probably can find it if you just give me a moment here. There we are. Sound Judgment. That's what it's called.
It sounds
Pardon me.
horrible. Sound judgment.
Sound Judgment. Well, because what she's doing specifically is she's talking about what she calls hostiness. So, and she got this from someone else, so it wasn't something she gives, credit where credit is due. But it's all about how being a good host draws people into your podcast.
Interesting.
And she produces podcasts all the time. So she and I did a 60-minute interview where we both released it on our respective shows the same way. I mean, we had the same basic audio, and then she put her skin on it and I put my skin on it.
Nice.
And then we released it together, and we did it in 2 parts. So there's a 30-second part or a 30-minute spot, and like a 30-minute part and a 30-minute part. So it's part 1 and part 2. And I do that all the time with all of my episodes because I just feel it gives me a little bit of buffer zone so that I don't have to be interviewing so many people, which means I can be pickier with the people I have on the show.
Right.
And, my podcast is specifically about the power of sound. And so it fit with her topic really well. And I had interviewed her previously on my podcast. So we knew sort of what each other was about. So
Right.
that, in a way, worked really well. And it was each of us being involved in that episode. It wasn't just changing the episode to be mine on hers.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah.
Like the full
so that
swap.
worked really well. And if you can find a synergy with someone that way, that's a great way to do it, I would think.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Like
Mm-hmm.
sharing the interview out with the guests and both shows, do it at the same time, kind of a thing.
Yeah, we kind of interviewed each other. It was an interesting way to do things.
Right. Well, I was on a show once, and I was being interviewed, talking about my stuff, and we're talking about a topic, and I even asked them if I can take that interview we did, that audio, can I put it on my show? Sure, go right ahead. And the second I did that, he's blowing me up. What are you doing? I said, you told me I can do that. And he said, no, I thought you were going to do a few clips of it, not the whole thing. Well, I told you that. And he said, I said, you know what? Fine. I'll take it down. Whatever. Don't get your panties in a bunch. Okay, calm down, And so I did that. But the thing kind of irritated me was that, like, he was afraid that if I put the same interview on my show, it's going to take away the interview that's on his show. Even though it's the same interview, even though it's my interview with me.
I don't get that. I don't get that at all.
I didn't get that either. So when you say that you guys both release the same thing, on two separate channels.
Yeah.
Maybe think about that, thinking that one person might be like jealous of the other person, thinking, well, if they're gonna put on their channel, there's no reason they're gonna watch it on my channel, kind of a thing, you know.
The idea would be that you would exchange with someone whose audience is different than your own. Otherwise, it's really not all that useful, is it?
Right. Yeah. So, but I think it could have been just like a jealousy thing, or maybe like
maybe a misunderstanding. Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that. So I try to stay clear from that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I love audio podcasting. I'm working a little bit on YouTube stuff. I've done YouTube since forever and ago, but when I first did YouTube years and years and years, I'm talking like 2008, a long time ago, there wasn't this kind of stuff, right? So, so for me, when I got into podcasting, it never occurred to me that it could be like a video chat style thing. I always assumed it was just like radio. So my love for radio, my love for audio came first. When I jumped into podcasting, I just did it in the tone of radio, and with microphones and headphones and no cameras at all, just recording it, you know, and didn't even think about it.
That's how I started too. Yeah.
So now everything's like video, everything's video everywhere. But what are your thoughts on your podcast having to have video? Because some people say you have to have video, but I don't know if you do. What do you think?
I don't think you have to have full video, put it that way. I think you don't need to have the whole show in video format. But if you have snippets, that is at least something that you can promote on social media. So I would suggest, if you're hesitant about video, record it in video and just take bits and pieces of it and use it for promo. And the rest don't even worry about. And the thing about YouTube, I'm kind of going against that grain, because I honestly, I don't really care. I just want to have the videos up there for people to watch if they want to watch. But most people are not going to watch the whole video. Most people are going to watch 20% of it, right?
Yeah, so if you look at your analytics, it says that.
Yeah, right.
It's horrible.
And the longer the video, the less of a chance that they're going to watch the whole thing. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to YouTube if you're putting hugely long form content on there that people aren't watching, because then YouTube's algorithm doesn't like you. I'm doing it anyway.
Right,
I am totally guilty of this.
Yeah, me too. I think it's great for discoverability.
Yeah.
I think even with my static image audio podcast, putting that on YouTube, at least it's there. Yeah. And I try to direct people to the podcast itself, but they follow along. But the way I look at like this as a long time ago, when on the other podcast we were doing, we were putting it on automatically shooting it over to YouTube, you know. And I was asking my mom, because she listens to our show regularly, and she would say something. I asked her like, how'd you like the episode? Oh, it was great, blah, blah, blah. I said, out of curiosity, where are you listening to the podcast? Well, on YouTube. I said, what? I said, well, it's just easier because, you know, I think a lot of people use YouTube for everything. And if your podcast is there, so be it. It's just there. It just makes it easier for them. And that's why I always say, when I post my podcast, my audio podcast on YouTube, and I post it's there, I'll say, if YouTube is more your thing, you know, it's there for you. You know, go right ahead. Because I know it gets complicated with all the millions of different apps out there. Yeah. And, you know, what phone you have and different things and all that. So I try to make it as simple as possible for the listener.
Yeah. I think it's just easier for people, as far as the audio is concerned, to listen to things during their day rather than having to watch a video.
That's true. Yeah.
Because video you need to focus on. And there are some people who really like that, and they will set aside time to do it, and all the power to them. That's perfectly fine. But if you're actually a podcast fan, if you really like podcasts, you're probably listening because it fits better into your day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I'm on the road, or I'm driving around, or I'm doing things and doing dishes and things like that, I'm always listening to podcasts versus watching.
It fills in the spaces in your life. It doesn't have to be completely focused on like a video does.
Unless you're really like showing me how to like take apart an engine or something, and this
That's
bolt
a different
goes,
thing.
It's totally different. That was the video.
Demonstrations, you know,
And that was the videos that I was watching and kind of creating, you know, years and years ago. Was like here we're showing you this kind of stuff, like showing you things. And that's why when I jumped into podcasting, it never occurred to me. Like I'm thinking, like, what is there to show you? We're just in this room here. Well, what do we show? What do we need to bring video into this?
Yeah.
That's why I always thought. But I think as COVID came in and everyone's using Zoom and Riverside and things like that, video became more the norm. And I think also, sad to say, is a lot of bad audio became the norm too.
Oh, yeah.
With whatever had laptop mics and things like that. And I suggest anybody getting any kind of microphone if they want to try to do anything like this. But I know sometimes you got to deal with what you got to deal with. People have horrible audio. They have horrible audio.
Just a couple of tips for people really quickly. Have some kind of headphones or earbuds or something, and not iPods, like not the earbuds that are Bluetooth. Because the problem with those is that they're constantly trying to connect with the computer. And if that's what you're using for both your hearing and your microphone, your audio gets distorted and awful. And it's not a good thing. Yeah. It's really not a good thing. I've had this happen to my podcast guests a couple of times. So I've learned the hard way. Yeah. Do not use
Or they actually jingle. Like these things, they actually jingle on your shirt with a microphone
It's fine. It's totally fine because they're wired in. So then the system isn't worried about connecting all the time. It doesn't ruin things.
Right.
But yeah, so I think it's very important for people to have a separate microphone, but it's almost more important for them to have earbuds or headphones that are actually workable. Because in a system like this, you want to be able to turn off the echo cancellation. Because if you don't turn off the echo cancellation, people can't talk over each other. It's less of a seamless integration of each speaker.
Yeah. It just feels natural. When we started doing podcasting with Clean Feed, we were using that for forever. Mm-hmm. I still do it for my clients, but it's audio only. But the nice thing is that it's very, very high quality, and there's that talk over. Ish, you can go back and forth, have our arguments and go back and forth and stuff, which makes it feel as if you're in the same room. That's one thing we always told everybody with the other podcast was that we bring a guest in here and there's like audio only, you're kind of freaking them out. But
Riverside is really good for that. And the Riverside audio and video is actually really high quality. And they're saving it to your local computer before it gets finalized and then forwarded to wherever it gets stored. So it's not like what we're seeing right now is exactly the quality that you're going to get when you get that file. You're getting the best quality file that you possibly can.
Spoken like a true Riverside promo. I love it.
I mean, I use it all the time, so I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Riverside's great. It's a fantastic product. I think a lot of people that are serious about the audio and the video quality should use it, but I think some people just know how to use Zoom and that's all they stick with because it works for me and blah blah blah.
Zoom is getting better all the time. I'm not gonna poo-poo on Zoom. I think they're doing a good job. So yeah.
I mean, as I said, it's all great. It's all fantastic. I think, but you need to really know your gear as a podcaster and content creator because some people jump in and like, what's this button do? I don't even know. What's this even recording? And
the Zoom setting that is the echo cancellation is the audio for musicians.
I saw that, yes.
Yeah. So if you click that on, I believe that, I'm pretty sure if you put that on, then it takes off the echo cancellation.
Okay, yes, because it's more natural and it's probably unfiltered, uncompressed. One thing I heard that Zoom compresses the audio quite a bit. Do they still do that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it still does that. It's improving all the time, so it's hard to say.
Well, Jodi, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I really appreciate you and your time and all your amazing stuff you do for podcasting and audio stuff in general. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Thanks.
Where can everybody find out all about you and all your wonderful stuff?
Well, my website is at voiceoversandvocals.com. If anyone happens to need voiceovers for whatever, you can get in touch with me there. And I do a lot of intros and outros for podcasts, so happy to help if someone needs that. Also, the podcast, Audio Branding, where I talk about the power of sound and how it influences us, that is at audiobrandingpodcast.com.
Fantastic. Well, Jodi, you have yourself a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.